Capitalism has skewed our perspective on how our life should look. We internalize the belief that we have one shot at this, a clear linear path to follow, set deadlines before it's too late to complete things in life. Procrastinating perfectionist, jack of all trades, master of none. In my last semester of high school, I have yet to figure out what I want to do with my life, feeling that there's nothing I am passionate about that's plausible in the real world. The system sets us up for as such. Graduate middle school, know exactly what you want to do in high school for extracurriculars and prepare immediately for college. Know exactly what you want to study in school to pursue for the rest of your life. Climb the corporate ladder until you can be considered successful by other people for your material achievements. Unless, you're an art major, in which case, you're already considered useless to the corporate world. Start saving early so you're set for retirement 40-some years in the future. While preparing early to navigate the world set for us can embed us for ideally stabler lives, we begin to forget that these systems aren't inherent. Material and wealth isn't definitive of a fulfilled life. At 17, I came to the conclusion that there isn't a point to life. I internalized my belief that I wasn't capable of harnessing any potential brewed within me. Circumstances in my life made me lose my spark and left me hanging for anything that could possibly provide me with meaning. I always knew that I wanted to create content or curate a community ever since I was young, but I never knew exactly how to go about it. How could I get started? How could I face the mere idea of people judging the things I do and what I create? Sure, I always felt I was capable, but the element I always lacked was the execution of the complex thoughts I sheltered in my head. Over the summer, I began trying to figure out how to use OBS. I started streaming in October, but the struggles I was experiencing at school beat back against that progress. 2 months ago, I recorded and uploaded a video entitled One Last Try. I talked about how even with my imminent graduation, I couldn't find hope that life would be different beyond high school, and I was on the deepest, exhausted verge of suicide. I would love to have an update to this story, but I somehow don't feel like that's feasible. I don't feel like it's gonna be another person anyway that has the answer. I know that the answer ultimately has to come from within myself. Spoiler, the answer came from within myself. This is the sequel to that video. If you had the choice, would you go back in time and relive the last 5 years of your life differently? Your instinct may tell you all these different things you could have done differently, but what would you have lost? Who would you be if you lost the growth you gained from all your experiences? We tend to worry about making mistakes. A small misstep can make you feel like you're a lost cause, and you may constantly feel the need to have a moral clean slate. But as the textbook recycled information tells us, you need mistakes to learn, to grow. I recall a quote that has given me a lot of perspective on this particular issue. It doesn't need to be good, it just has to exist first. I learned that my perfectionism manifests itself to compensate for a lack of control I feel in the world. That if I do everything in the exact perfect manner, I can control the outcome of a situation. I think we tend to forget the notion that perfection doesn't exist. Humanity cannot do everything right in every given moment. Our growth comes from our response to the situations we find ourselves in. Starting these new interests becomes daunting when you're a perfectionist and think in an all-or-nothing mindset. But these things come as a process, and the information you learn from the journey is more valuable than the end goal itself. I think to the many creators I've looked up to before, and I've noticed a similar pattern.
What would it have been like if I had been born a few years earlier? How far could I have gone?
What if I'd have worked a little bit harder, or been less cringy, or born a few years earlier? But I've been one of the big YouTubers.
Nothing in life lasts forever, especially on the internet. When you hold spaces from your past in a high regard, you tend to compare everything to it and feel like you've lost your shot at partaking in what was once great. But life moves so fast, and new concepts, ideas, and trends shoot through our culture. I mean, the hell is Queen Never Cry and hydrogen nuclear bomb versus coughing baby? Though another conversation needs to be had about those fast-paced trends, they reveal something critical. Life is constantly changing and offering new opportunities to find communities and self-growth. There was a time you were living before these new spaces you've discovered, and you couldn't have predicted where you would be before then. Of course, the unknown is scary. We're intrinsically terrified of what the future has to offer, but embracing that fear by beginning to take risks in the hopes of creating a better future pays off more than avoidance and fearing getting started. When your only objective is an end goal, you cannot embrace everything that gets you to that point. This is fed into by the working system, and arguably even the modern-day romance scene. Our society moves further and further into these ideas of viewing concepts and people as end goals, rather than as something or someone that grows with you and the persistence of growth together. I sometimes think back about how things could have been if I had just started earlier, if I just had that drive to begin. But I also think about everything I wouldn't have known. I get scared that I've wasted my teenage years and ruminate over the fact that soon I will be 18. For it to have taken so long for me to discover meaning, to suddenly be thrust into the world of adulthood. When college applications were coming up, I felt unaccomplished and that I had nothing of value to demonstrate about my growth. This overlapped with my deep depression and a hospitalization, making it even more difficult to get started on essays. I almost gave up on applications, but I was fortunate enough to receive a push from one of my mentors, telling me that I was one of the few people that cannot turn to nihilism in this world, and that college is one of the only places and times where I am most likely to be capable of making a difference in the world. I don't believe the journey implies that you are inherently deserving of bad things that happen to you for the sake of growth. It was extremely debilitating to live with depression following me around my whole life, with the intensity of the last 2 years driving me to my lowest that I could possibly be. But looking back on it all, I can't say exactly that I wish it went differently. Yes, it has impacted the way I think, the way I interact in my relationships with people. But it's not necessarily always a bad thing. I pick up on subtle emotional cues more diligently and can provide more support to people who I see need it. I struggle to be vulnerable, but when I am, I feel a deep connection to my spirit and humanity, which is something I lacked for so long. Nostalgia is a unique, fleeting feeling that can only be chased after but never indulged in. The past adopts more meaning the further we get away from it, but falling into the trap of hating the present is a fallacy that only pushes us to become more resentful in life.
So what you should do is keep, for nostalgia purposes, keep those that were there during that time, but grow new experiences with those people. So you still have the people that made everything fun.
Sure.
As long as they're like, you know, good people and
Yeah,
like
I'm not really
June
sure.
or something, but like
During college application season, I felt that the value of what I wrote, what I created, would be determined by my admissions and that I had to bank on the decisions to determine if I would have a happy future. But in retrospect, I gained something much more valuable. My essays were the first writing pieces I truly created for myself, unwilling to compromise on their authenticity for a mere gamble on my future. I realized through these works that I did have one skill distinctly above the others: storytelling. I digress. I was applying to colleges as an English major. But I began viewing the world and encounters in my daily life as metaphors, symbols that could reveal deep themes and recycle all that we consume in this world into creation. Writing gave me clarity on what I wanted to achieve with the content I aspired to make, and provided me with something of focus, something to center my days around. I learned to dismantle my need for control by embracing what the present has to offer. To get out of the state I'd been in, I took risks. I engaged in more healthy confrontation to escape the situations triggering my depression. I was able to change my schedule at school, distance myself from the people that tore apart my confidence. I performed at my school's guitar showcase last minute to demonstrate a passion I'd been hiding for so long. I let out the words I needed to for unresolved anger I felt. When I started to find that my days were filled with less numbness and more meaning, I finally grasped that when given the right approach to life, it doesn't come at you, but from within you. Yes, we can turn to nihilism when we lose all hope in the world. Perhaps there isn't an actual meaning to life, but we are able to curate one for ourselves to enrich the short experience we do have here. When we start a new Minecraft world, perhaps our long-term plans are to progressively work towards maxing out fully enchanted netherite armor, getting an elytra, and finishing the end goals typically acknowledged in the game. We forget that the game is a sandbox. Sandboxes lack objective. You can build your sandcastles, you can dig, you can craft diamond boots. Nothing in the game essentially tells you to fully deck yourself out and become the most powerful person theoretically possible. My friend and I decidedly don't wear armor in SMPs if we can help it. In fact, we dye leather boots as our accessory. To us, diamonds and netherite's utility is primarily for the tools we create to work on various projects that we enjoy completing. The finished product of those projects is nice to look back on, but it only gains the meaning and satisfaction through the long work we spend on curating it into something we can be proud of. What I appreciate about leather armor is the mobility to dye it into a vast range of different colors. Perhaps it is not practical for defense or sustainability. But just because it is common, it should not be diminished in its value. It provides ease of accessibility. We start Minecraft worlds to have fun, to make memories, to look back on what we create with fondness. What's so different about life? Anyone can argue that a Minecraft world is meaningless. But we derive meaning from the experience ourselves. If we stop playing on old SMPs, we have to start from scratch when we make new ones. In the same sense that in order to build your new life, you must lose your old one. And of course, that's incredibly scary. Perhaps achievements are helpful in demarcating the checkpoints we reach in life. I still have yet to graduate in 3 months. When I cross that rite of passage, I will indulge in how it makes me feel. But I will feel the most comforted when I remember my capability to have overcome what I was confronted with senior year. How graduation is less of a checkpoint in life to me, but a part of the process, and signifies a celebration to my unique journey, and as a reminder of how my life is only just beginning.